Okay, so right now, I just wanted to say what's happening with SpaceX and ULA and the gang. So right now, SpaceX on their last mission, their second stage did not relight. They put their Starlink satellites in orbit, but it was an elliptical orbit, and they had to circularize it, and they had an oxygen leak, and a lot of reports said that it blew up. They had a RUD. Well, what happened is they couldn't relight, and since they couldn't relight, they released the satellites, and then they put all the little ion thrusters that the satellites had on maximum, but it was not enough to overcome the drag of being such a low orbit, and they all came back to Earth. And the if the second stage hasn't come back to Earth, it will in the next few days. But they've had a lot of successful launches in a row. That's in a row. And this year, including the failed one that just happened, they've had 69 Falcon launches and a Falcon Heavy and 2 Starship launches. So they're about to launch Starship pretty fast. They don't have an exact date on that. They have to get approval from the FAA. But SpaceX is moving their headquarters to Texas, along with X, which used to be Twitter. And the reason that Elon Musk gave for that was because the governor just signed a bill stating that it is the schools cannot pass a law requiring the schools to let the parents know if their kid is identifying as an opposite sex. Okay, so he's saying, well, who controls the kids, the parents or the schools? And he goes, I'm out of here. So he's moving the headquarters, but he was going to move the headquarters anyway, make no doubt about it. But that was the excuse he gave. And right now, SpaceX has created their own EVA suit. And like on the ISS, they're having a lot of problems with the EVA suit. They've canceled a lot of EVAs because of the problems. And Collins Space was supposed to create a new EVA suit, but they haven't been meeting their goals, and they canceled the contract. So it was a mutual thing. Collins said, look, we put this much money of it, they got so much money, but they needed to put some more of their own money into it and then sell the spacesuits to NASA. And they decided they couldn't do it. So right now, NASA is just stuck with their old EVA suits with no replacements. And SpaceX also was just awarded $843 million to deorbit the ISS. They originally had planned on having 3 Russian Progress modules to deorbit it, but they did the calculations. And they decided that they were incapable of doing that with keeping the ISS in one piece. So they're going to take a cargo Dragon and extend the trunk and put 30 Draco engines with tanks, fuel tanks in there. And from our modules, it'll connect and it'll just stay there. And then the astronauts will ride, as they're checking it out and stuff, they will be being lowered with the International Space Station. And then about 6 months before they decide to actually deorbit the space station. The astronauts will leave, and then SpaceX will try to aim for the Pacific, you know. And when I say SpaceX, this will be a NASA-owned vehicle. SpaceX is going to build it, but NASA will operate and own it. And it's a one-time thing because it's going to burn up with the, so obviously they're not going to have a heat shield on this one. So that's what's happening with SpaceX. This is causing a lot of, I mean, they've canceled several missions already, and Polaris Dawn, which is the next manned flight, was supposed to happen July 31st, and we don't think they're going to be able to make that, but we'll see. Boeing is still connected to the space station. They're there while they're testing out their thrusters and other things. The thing with Boeing is, and I honestly believe they can get home safely, but they want to do all their tests because unlike the Dragon, which has all their thrusters connected to the spacecraft itself, Boeing has a disposable trunk, and that's where all the thrusters are. So the problem is when they come back, they can't look at the thrusters because they've burnt up. So they have to look at it now, you know. So they're stuck there until the testing's over. And now ULA, now to show you the difference was, before SpaceX, it was just ULA that launched everything for the United States. And you can see this year, they've been really busy with their 3 launches. The Vulcan was the first time they ever launched the Vulcan. And they launched it with Starliner, and the launch was perfect. The Starliner made it to the International Space Station, no problem at all. Their problems were with Starliner, not the rocket. And that was the last launch of the Delta Heavy. And they do have 70 launches in the queue from the DoD and the Amazon, and the Dream Chaser was supposed to be their next launch, but the Dream Chaser isn't quite ready. So their next launch will just be a mass simulator. And why did we lose our okay. Maybe I got to make sure that this is being pushed. And Rocket Lab, even though it's they have their headquarters at Long Beach, it's really a New Zealand company, but they wanted DoD contracts, so they had to be an American company. And they've had 8 launches this year with their little Electron rocket. They're building the Neutron rocket, which is in the Falcon 9 class, that so they can compete with and it's a reusable rocket, but they haven't got I mean, they're still building it, they're still testing it, and so it's not ready yet. And they did add 2 new launch pads, one at Wallops Island, which is the Mid-Atlantic regional spaceport, and another one right next to the one that they have in New Zealand. So anyway, they've been fairly busy with 8. But as you can see, 69 Falcon launches versus 8 versus 3, you know. And they're saying, well, how can you launch things so cheaply? And that guy goes, well, if you have a launch director and you're paying him a yearly salary and he's launching 69, you know, how much per launch are you paying him? And if you've got a launch director and he has 3, you know, and if they get the same wage or something close, you know, how much per launch are you paying him? You know, so that's the difference. I mean, obviously Falcon 9 or your SpaceX has more than one launch director, but still. And then the European Space Agency, the Ariane 6 just launched, on the 6th. And the first stage and the solid rocket boosters performed, without a flaw. The second stage did not do a relight, and they got to find out why. Of course, they don't get it back or anything like this. So they have a lot of launches in the queue, and most of those launches don't require a relight. So they could go ahead. I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to do another test, but I think that they can figure out why it didn't relight. And they had a couple, they had, I believe, 6 or 8 little like CubeSat size satellites that they launched, and 2 of them they did not deploy because it needed the relight for them for it to land. It was 2 return vehicles. They were just going to test out the heat shield and stuff, and so but they weren't going to recover it. They were just going to test it on the way down and get the data. But it went down with the second stage. And well, I don't know if it went down with the second stage. The second stage is probably still up there because it didn't relight. So that's that. And I think, yeah, that's it. So that's my present. That's what's happening in the rockets that we're having now. I can say that Artemis, they're parts of the next Artemis mission, which are supposed to send astronauts around the moon, but not not on the moon. That those parts are coming together in Florida. They're shipping them to Florida, so it's getting closer. So thank you, and it's time for a break.